Oh, there we go. That was very bizarre. So I was afraid to back out because I thought I'd have to go to my second stream, which I really hate having to do that. But if I do get cut off, you guys know the drill. You go to the reboot stream link that is in the description and give me time to set it as public since it is currently private. But it was like, so what I did was I started a separate window. I opened a different window in my dashboard and I could see that I still wasn't live, but this what happens if you've never done this before, which I'm assuming anyone watching at the moment has never done this, but when you hit okay, go live, there's this, it swirls around, it says going live and it takes about 15 seconds. Well, it's just kept going and going and going and going and going. So I I thought, well, I'll just leave that. I'll open a separate window and go in there and to my dashboard, and it showed that the show was still upcoming. So it hadn't gone live. So I was able to start it again and then close the first window. Thankfully, it worked. I was thinking, great. Are they cutting me off before I can even start? Crazy. So now I don't have much time for, this is when I'm supposed to start anyway. I'm glad I give myself a few extra minutes because you just never know. So, yay, yay, yay. We were able to come on live so far without hitches. Hopefully, it will stay that way. Hello, everyone. So, hello, everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. Good to see y'all coming in, or, at least those of you who are live. God is good all the time, even on dark, rainy days like today. I will say, though, Friday was a super, super nice warm day. And Patrick and I busted our hind ends getting some stuff done outside. It was so nice to be able to do that. It was a great feeling. I got my potatoes in the ground, at least out front. Patrick dug up a whole bunch of morning glory. We filled my carrot boxes out there with the wood chips that we had breaking down out here on the side yard. And so they were mostly just soil by this point because they've been sitting out there for 2 years. And I pruned some hedges that seriously needed some serious pruning and much more. We still had tons more to do to finish getting the garden ready, but I got some more seeds started. And so it's good. Anyway, those of us who died will forget to hit the like button. Yeah, don't forget. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the topic. I do have a few more things I want to cover, but let's get going on the topic of just making the most of small spaces. So, for those of you who don't like the run on blah blah blah, like the lady that was complaining the other day, at any rate, know that I did link to videos on this specific topic. So that are going to be more streamlined and shorter, and they are in the description box down below. So, I mean, even the video I take from the live and then shorten that and streamline that down, still not good enough for some people. But whatever. People are going to complain. There's always going to be whiners no matter what you do, no matter how much you try to please everyone. But I do the best I can and try to make everybody happy. And we like the lives. We don't care if other people don't like lives. They don't have to be here. So anyway, this making the most of small spaces. So this is covering. Oh, and by the way, Dusty, thank you for using your own name. Now, did you create a separate account? I didn't. I haven't caught up on all the comments. Did you create a separate account, or did you just change the name on your husband's account? Yeah, I don't know. Some people I think just like to have a reason to complain. So good for you, Dusty. Good girl. Good girl. I'm just giving you a hard time. So anyway, this isn't just talking about one area. We're talking about the whole gamut of things. So I do have a video specifically on like food storage for small spaces. So, trying to make the most of just the different areas around your house. And then I have the small space homesteading, and then I have the video on container gardening. So I'll be kind of covering bits and pieces of some of that. But if you're really interested in this topic, I do recommend you go watch those videos, especially if you're watching this live where I'm not inserting pictures and video clips and whatnot. Because I have a lot of photos I collected, not just from what we do, but photos from the internet that I found, like for food storage, like some different people's ideas that they do to make the most of their area. Because you get a lot of people, and it seems like it doesn't really matter how much square footage you have in your house or out in your yards or how many acres you have, we can always find ways to make better use of the space that we have. So let's say you're gardening and or you're wanting to get into gardening and you have very, very limited space. Maybe you don't even have a yard because you live in an apartment. It's like, well, how can I garden? Well, some people do a lot indoors. And some people even use like the stackable pots, like the green stock indoors, as long as they have maybe a sliding glass door to set it close to or a big window to set it close to. I would recommend turning it at least every couple of days in that case. So everything all the way around it could get sun. You've also, most people will have some kind of window that they can grow herbs or smaller, even lettuces in. As long as they don't get too hot, the lettuces, but they don't need a whole lot of sun. That's what's great about lettuce is you can grow lettuces pretty good in low sun areas. So I, in fact, found the best place for me to grow lettuces is on the well, it faces south. It's a good place for me to start a lot of seeds. So I've got shelves on the south side of my greenhouse on the outside. So I'll start a lot of things out there that don't need a lot of heat, in the earlier part of the spring. And like right now, I've got lettuces starting to grow in those, but they'll just stay there. Right now, they're getting plenty of sun, which is fine because the sun is warming it up. Well, except for today because it's rainy. But the sun gets to warm those pots up, and I don't have to have them in the greenhouse. And then by the time the lettuces start getting to that point where they're growing and they don't need as much sun, much direct sun, the grapevines have filled in quite a bit and shaded that whole area. So it makes a really great place for me to grow my lettuces. And when I first started planting things there, I mean, Patrick put those shelves on there many years ago, and I first started growing strawberries there, and it was great for growing strawberries because my grapevines were very young and not filling that whole area, and so they got sun all through the summer. But no longer a good place for growing strawberries because it doesn't get enough sun through the summer. But it's great for lettuces. Even pansies do pretty good if I put them in the pot on the end that's more likely to catch some sun. So, and so, yeah, you'll see some of that in that video on the small space homesteading and probably also in the one on container gardening. I don't know which came first. I think I did the container tips on container gardening last year. So if you at least have maybe a deck or some kind of outdoor area, you can consider having some, even just getting bookshelves as long as they're open, and don't have an enclosed back. And then you can put plants on shelves. In fact, I had Patrick build me a shelf. It's just two shelves to go along the east facing side of his shop, which faces out onto the deck. And I use that to grow other things that don't need a whole ton of sun, such as violets. I'll let my violets grow on there. The thyme seems to do pretty good there too. And thyme does like sun, but it seems to not mind not getting all day sun either. And violets do, I find here at least, do better in areas, they get bigger in the areas where they don't get a lot of direct sun. Anywhere where they get a lot of direct sun, they'll grow, but they just don't grow as big or as lush. So, yeah, the violets do really well there. I just found them growing wild out in my yard. They were little tiny things and put them in these pots and realized they loved it there. No, I haven't made violet jelly. I'm not a big jelly person. I prefer jams and I prefer fruit jams. Though I've tried some floral jellies that I liked, but I like jams. I like the bits and pieces of fruit and seed and the whole bit in there. But I'll use violets for the leaves and the flowers for adding to my oil for skin cream because it's really good for your skin. Because, violets, pansies are all related. They're all part of the viola family. Darlene, you made it. Yay. I hope you're doing good, lady. So, the other thing too is when it comes to your small space gardening is just understanding what of the plants you have need more sun and what can grow well in shade. And you can find, in fact, I shared this a lot of times that I found that potatoes will grow in shady areas. You might not get as many potatoes, but they will grow. And so the very first well, no, it wasn't the very first year I grew potatoes, but, it was years later and we kinda redid everything, and I was trying to make the most of the space without having to get rid of the pool and the trampoline at that time because we were still using it, and so I planted potatoes right up next to the house facing north, which means it almost never gets sun there. Gets indirect sun, but no real sun, but it stays really moist there. Got quite a few nice sized potatoes. So I was surprised. I was just trying it to see what would happen. And I was surprised how well they did. But with potatoes, the more sun and more water they get, the more and bigger they'll get. So they do prefer sun, but you might be surprised at the things that can grow fine in shade. If you like beet greens, you don't really care about beets, but you like beet greens, you can grow those in the shade. You won't get good big roots, big beets, but you'll get plenty of greens. So there's a lot of things that you can do like that. So again, it just depends. If it's the beet greens you're more interested in, then that's something you can grow in shady areas. But coming back to container gardening is just a really great way to make use of space. We like to watch a channel called Kirsten Dirksen. I mean, that's her name. And you might have heard of her. She does a lot of, she goes around all over the world pretty much and interviews people. And a lot of times it's not always tiny places. Sometimes it's tiny places, sometimes it's big places, but a lot of times it's off grid kind of things. And I mean, just all kinds of neat stuff. Well, one of the last ones that she did was of somebody who lives uh, in DC in like in an alley. And he bought this little lot right in the alley. And the way he designed his house to make the most out of this space was so cool. I mean, I would hate to live there, in that area, but I really could appreciate what he did. So I love watching that kind of stuff to see how people make the most of their space, whether it be their acreage or the space inside their home. So you just saw that one? Wasn't that pretty cool what he did? I love the way he had the stairs and everything set up in such a way that would make the buffer between the alley and the area of the house where you're gonna be living in and hanging out, so you're not getting so much of the alleyway noise. Not that it was that busy of an alley, but I thought that was a really neat idea. But what I really, really loved, of course, was what he did to the roof. And he had a garden up there and had just all these big containers and all kinds of stuff growing in his garden up there. So he's doing it on top of his roof. So sometimes it's just learning how to be creative and look around at what you have. Look around at your whether it be a big space or a little space isn't really even just the point. It's like maybe even if you do have a lot of acreage to grow, but you're getting older and you're like, I don't want to have to walk all the way out there to get that. How can I do more and keep it closer to the house? And so, when I got started here, This is obviously long before we bought the property down the road and the mountain property. We were just trying to make the most of our area here while we were looking for more property. And now it's like I really like keeping it here because everything is close. It's just right outside my door. And some of the things I just tried things. I just got creative. So for a while we had a peach tree, a little dwarf peach tree growing in a pot out back. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to plant some beans around this. And I did that for a couple of years before we ended up moving the peach tree out front and then eventually getting rid of it. But so I planted beans around there, and the beans used the peach tree, and it was small enough that it wasn't a big deal. And so pole beans, obviously, and so they climbed up the peach tree and through the branches. So I had beans in my peach tree. And that was really cool. It was a way I was able to make the most of the space where the peach tree already was, and I could grow beans as well. So this is why I prefer climbing beans or pole beans or runner beans, because they will climb on anything pretty much. So I've tried doing the beans and corn thing, and that wasn't super successful because here the beans, no matter when you plant them, the beans always just grow too fast and the corn grows too slowly. However, I have planted beans in other areas and around other things. So, like planting beans around my marshmallow plants, because the marshmallow, it's a perennial. And yeah, in fact, that was one of the things I did the other day was broke down all of my dry marshmallow stalks finally. And anyway, you can plant your beans right at the base of your marshmallow plants or any other plant that can grow fairly tall and strong. Sunflowers as well. And they will grow up those plants. So I have this really great picture that I can add in, when I do the separate video from this, of my scarlet runner beans growing around my marshmallow. So you can see the white flowers of the marshmallow and then the bright, scarlet flowers from the beans. And it's such a cool picture. I just love it. So I got beans and marshmallow growing in the same area. So it's thinking along that lines. What are some other things? So you guys have seen where I've taken the juniper out front, that I really don't want to get rid of it because of the privacy it kind of adds to my front window and deck from the rest of the neighbors down this way. But it's like, how can I make more use of this space? Because I got to prune it up. So I opened it up to get more sun coming straight down on the inside of the juniper. And then Patrick just took some wood rounds and made little shelves. So I have pots with strawberries growing in them there. I got strawberries growing in pots everywhere. Here, that's the other thing that grows best in pots here are strawberries. If I try to put them in the ground, the slugs will eat them. And, they're more like, it's not like they don't come up on the deck, but they're less likely to come up on the deck and eat my strawberries. So they do best in pots. And I prefer that. I've done strawberries in hanging pots. They did so in the hanging pots. Does marshmallow keep the beans on your fork like putting honey on peas? Does marshmallow keep the beans on your fork like putting honey on peas? Oh, sometimes Tyler, I'm like, okay, I know he's got to be joking, but maybe I'm misunderstanding what he's saying. Smarty pants. Anyway, the marshmallow plant. I just don't even know what to do. What to do. I do have disciplinary actions I can take if I really have to. So yeah, I love the strawberry. I don't get a lot of strawberries out of those particular ones though, but I still love doing that. So Mr. Rain is here in Astoria. Now, Dusty, I'm assuming you're in, is that Oregon? Is that Astoria, Oregon? Am I thinking of the right place? Kind of on the tip down there, right by the Columbia River. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Anyway, so some other ideas. I'll talk more about the indoor storage for food. Let's see. Let me think if there was anything else. Um, but yeah, there's oh, grapes. I haven't done this because I already got like my grapes where they're at, but I've seen people plant grapes around their fruit trees. And this one guy, I can't remember who he was now. I can almost see his face. You guys probably heard of him. But he grew grapes around his fruit trees, and the grapes would grow up into the fruit tree. So he's getting the fruit, let's say it's pears, apples, whatever. Plus, the fruit tree was just full of grapes. He said he got 7 times more grapes off his grapevines growing them around the fruit trees, which I thought was really interesting. And then at the base of the grapes, he was growing things like smaller plants like strawberries and other like shrubby kind of plants down there. And, making his own little food forest, and it was really cool. I wish I could remember his name. But anyway, or what is I don't even know if he has a channel. He might have a channel. I don't recall. It was years ago I saw that. So that was really pretty cool. So just there's a few ideas for growing things. And please, if you've got any ideas that you like that you do yourself and you're in the chat, please throw them out there and put those in all caps too, so that that can be something I can read and then have that be in part of the standalone video I make out of this for later. Because, and then if you're watching us, and it's too late to put anything in the chat, put them in comments down below as well, so that people can get ideas from you. Because this is just some of the things that I have done to make the most of my space. But again, a lot of it, there's going to be a lot of things you'll find is going to be trial and error, depending on your space, depending on which way your different gardens are facing, how shady things are. Some people live in places where they got a lot of tall trees around them and all they have is shade. Look for shade loving plants. There's a lot of herbs that you can grow in the shade too. I mean, nettle loves cooler, shadier areas anyway. So if you live in a hot place, but you really want to grow nettle, but you have areas that have a lot of shade, it might do okay there if it has plenty of shade. It would need to be shaded from the sun all day in that case. Here, my nettle gets a lot. It faces south. It's up against a house facing south, and it does get a lot of sun, but because of where it is, it's a little more protected, and it gets a lot of rain, a lot of moisture, and so it does very, very well. And like I said in a previous live show, it gets like 8 feet tall if I let it. It'll just keep growing and growing and growing. And yes, cattle panels. So we have a couple of arch cattle panel areas that all grow like my snow peas. Those snow peas go right up against the chicken coop, so that, on the section of that arched cattle panel right up next to the chicken coop, because the chicken coop will shade it from the hottest part of the sun, just right in that area later in the day. So the snow peas do really good there. And then on the other half of the cattle panel, I'll grow more beans. And then we have horse fencing, or it's either horse fencing or hog fencing, I don't know, but whatever. And Patrick put that up on one section of my garden, and that's where I grow most of my beans. But I love putting up a lot of beans, so I'll grow beans wherever I can. So I'll grow them in that arched area. And then we have a second arched area that I use for growing pumpkins and other types of climbing things like that. A lot of times I'll put beans in there too. And then I have pots in various areas, like just outside the greenhouse, where I have little chains hanging down, and I'll plant beans in there, and the beans will climb up those chains. So I have one on my deck like that too. Put beans in there, and they'll climb up the chains, and then they'll kind of go across the gutter on Pat's shop, and it looks cool. And it gives me a few more beans. I don't get near as many beans off those as I do on the ones in the garden area, on the hog wire or horse fence, whichever one that is. Horse wire. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Rain. That's where I get most of them, and then on the arched, you know, cattle panels. But, it's still fun to do that. It adds more color. It's just another place I can get a few more beans. I also have, honeysuckle growing in a pot on my deck, and sometimes the beans will climb around that as well because I got them like, right next to each other. So, somebody said something here, what was it? I plant smaller watermelons next to cattle panel and put the melons in recycled ice cream buckets so the weight doesn't break the vine. Very good. I've also heard of people using like nylon stockings for melons, for cantaloupe, which is melon, of course, and other things like that. And like, uh, to break up that weight a little bit. So that's a really great idea. I personally haven't done that one. I have 8-foot panel fence and I put up rain gutters. I planted flowers, herbs. That's what I was going to bring up, Karen. Thank you. So you can use gutters to plant in too. Now, keep in mind they're kind of shallow. Some people say, oh, plant strawberries in the gutters. Well, that might be good for a year or two, but because they're so shallow and they don't allow a lot of growth, expansion, and strawberries are perennial, so they're going to keep coming back and keep growing. You wouldn't be able to do that for long, but uh, the gutters, I've seen people do that where they just take the gutters and maybe even paint them a pretty color, and then actually install the gutters directly to the side of a building and then plant in those. And that is a great place to grow your herbs such as thyme and your lettuces. I find the lettuces, I just love doing that kind of thing. Well, I don't use the gutters, but it's a similar idea where I have the long, skinny pots like that on the shelves and then grow the lettuces in there. So yeah. Now, I'm already at 27 minutes in. And as far as like food storage, learn to make the most out of the areas you have inside to store all those things you're getting from your garden, such as your beans and whatnot. You may not have spare bedrooms like we now do because our boys have long since moved out of the house. And so their bedrooms have become two different types of storage areas. And one is specifically our pantry. So and we have a whole bunch of shelves in there, and so we've got that whole area there, but that's not the only place we use for food storage. I've got, if you go watch that video on small, what do I call it, food storage for small spaces. Like I said, I show a lot of my ideas and images, like even like in a guest room. I've got a couple of like plastic totes stocked up on top of each other on one side of the bed that then I covered with a pretty Afghan to use as an end table. But inside those totes is food. And it's just things like that. So, and like I always like to say, even though I've never done this, I just think it was such a creative idea. The lady that took apart a couple of her doors and stored soup packs, anything small and skinny that she could stick in there inside the door and then put the doors back together. Something you'd want something that would have pretty much an indefinite shelf life. But I just think it's a great idea. I personally would never do it, but a great idea. I don't buy soup packs anyway. The closest thing I get every once in a while is the Mother Earth Products 3 onion soup dip mix, which I could make myself, but it is kind of nice to have that on hand too. And it's like, oh yeah, I have this, and I'm making up this dip. I can just put this in there, and it's it's pretty good. But yeah, other than that, I don't buy I don't buy soup mixes and that kind of thing. See, I've used gutters for lettuces. I called it my shade garden. Not fancy, but it worked for 2 years. Very cool, Dana. Thank you. Let's see. Is this a question? A more economical answer for cattle panels is concrete grid panels. They are galvanized, but your plants won't care. Yeah, and it's nice that um, they're not going to rust. So let's see what else. Some other ideas. Let me see if I've got anything else that I do. So some other ideas for like indoor food storage would be, don't forget your bedroom closets. Most everybody has a shelf in there. If you don't already have it packed full of stuff, consider using that as an area to store food, or under your bed, or even getting like those long skinny totes. They're short like this. They're made for going under the bed, and you can store food in there. And that way, all you got to do is slide it out. Or if you want a whole new bed, get one that has built-in drawers at the bottom, and you can use that. Unless, of course, you need that space for clothes. But some ideas. Bookshelves, putting food, like a lot of times you'll have a lot of books on a bookshelf that, where you have a whole bunch of space in front of the books, where you can put, and I've done this too, put food, like some of my canned goods, my home canned goods, at the very, very back of the bookshelf, and then put the books in front. That not only hides the food, but it just gives another area that you can use for storing food if you need it. I mean, especially for those people who live in an apartment or are just trying to find the best way possible to put up as much food as they can. So, hello, Elaine, and no worries. No worries. You can put risers under your bed frame for more space. Right, Cindy. Thank you for that. So that's another idea too. I've seen, I think it was on a Doomsday Prepper, where people were putting like water storage tanks. They put it in their bedroom and then put their mattress on top of the tanks. It made their bed really high up. So they had to like use a ladder to get into their bed. But you always got something like that. Or just get a big old bunk bed and then have all that storage underneath. Like make a closet under the bunk bed. Let's see. New mattresses don't need box springs. New bed frames meant for those newer beds give you way more storage space. There you go. Way more storage space. I need to finish reading the comments out loud. Elevation is your friend for maximizing space. So that goes both inside and outside. So in the garden and inside. So, because not everybody is 8 feet tall. So you've got all this upper room up there. Always looking for ways to be able to not only store things, but store them in a way that I can keep them as organized as possible. And then every time you decide, hey, I'm going to start stocking up on this, or I'm going to start stocking more of that, it's like, great. Now what am I going to do with all this stuff? I've come to the point, though, with my jars, though I used to always kind of store them in the same place. Because I didn't do any canning this last year, I have tons of empty jars. And I'm thinking, why am I trying to find places to put all these empty jars when I'm out of space? In my usual spaces, I store my empty jars. Now I have a lot more. It's like, well, duh. Fill up the empty spaces in the pantry with the empty jars. Hello. The banana slugs get saddles, but they are slow. Do we even have banana slugs out here, Mr. Rain? I don't think so. I think banana slugs are more like south of us. We get a lot of slugs, and some are decent size, but they're not massive like banana slugs. My husband took a wall board off. Few walls made shelves between each stud. Yes, Teresa, thank you for sharing that. I have seen, in fact, I think I shared some of that, some images of something like that in that video I was talking about, food storage for small spaces. It's such a great idea. So, especially if it's like interior walls where you don't have to have the insulation in there. But what do I do for slugs? I actually have a video on that. And Dusty, if your area is like ours, all the whole beer and dish method, you may find to be, I'm assuming you don't get near the amount of rain we do, but I know where you're at, you probably get a lot of moisture and it's going to be cooler because you're right there on that tip, between the Columbia River and the ocean. Beer and dishes for us is an absolute waste of beer and time. So I tried it so many different ways. I even tried doing things like getting beer bottles and then turning them sideways. So obviously, a lot of the beer would run out. Like obviously, I had to empty some of it out. So then the slugs would go inside, but the rain wouldn't wash all the beer out of the bottle. That didn't work. I've tried so many different ways. I tried to make shelters for the beer and dishes. It didn't work. It didn't. I got a few slugs. What I did the first few years that I had before I got chickens was I handpicked every morning, early in the morning, while the dew was still out there and the slugs were still busy. And mostly it's those little tiny baby slugs. And I would pick slugs until I got at the very minimum 100 slugs and sometimes 200 slugs. And then I would stop and then go out the next morning. That did make a big dent in the slugs. It was getting chickens that made the difference and letting them run loose in the garden through the fall, through spring, all winter, spring. So they'd eat until I was ready to start planting in those areas. So they eat all the baby slugs, they'll eat all the eggs, they'll scratch and they'll peck those eggs out of the ground and the grubs as well, you know, and when they're in the larva stage. So made a big difference in the backyard. I still get slugs, but not near as many slugs. The front yard, the front areas where my chickens, or the garden areas where my chickens are never allowed to go. And I mostly am growing things that slugs don't eat anyway, except for the horseradish. They devour the young horseradish leaves when they're coming out of the ground. It's crazy. Yes, slugs will, yeah, they still breed with each other, but they're both. So it's an interesting process. It's an interesting thing to see the way they wrap around each other. It's kind of crazy. But at any rate, yeah, so in the places where I absolutely had to, and it's like, okay, like my pansies I was growing out front before, and the slugs were devouring them. I started using Sluggo. I think that's the right one, where it's little white pellets that are, it's approved for organic gardening because and it won't even, if your chickens do happen to eat it, it's not going to hurt them or any of your animals. It just kills the slugs because of the high iron levels in it. So, yeah, that works pretty good. There's a lot of other types of slug bait that I wouldn't use because I wouldn't trust what it would do to my, the organic side of it and what kind of chemicals it could be adding to my soil. But one time I was sprinkling some of those little pellets in a place, like in some pots I thought the chickens couldn't get to. They were down low, but I thought I had them like closed in enough the chickens wouldn't get to them. But I never would have thought of them eating the Sluggo. They did. They devoured it. And I'm like, "Oh, my chickens are all gonna die." Nope, didn't hurt them one bit. But I don't do that anymore because not only do I really not want them eating the slug bait, it's not cheap. So I tried to only use it when I absolutely have to. So let's see. And some people use copper. That I've tried that. That's a waste of time here too because of all the moisture. It quickly corrodes the copper and the slugs will just crawl right over it. Let's see, what else? Eggshells, coffee grounds. I've even seen slug slime going right over the coffee grounds I sprinkled on top of something. I'm like, we probably have the most tenacious slugs. Ew. Slugs would be good for a low sodium diet. Gross. And Karen, I'm sure you know he's joking. That's what Tyler does best. Him and Patrick both. Will go broke under what plan? What did I miss? What did I miss? What is it? Wasting beer is sacrilegious. Put it in a stew and pay the kids a penny a slug. There you go. If you got kids, yeah, I just pick. I'd have a container and I just keep throwing them slugs in there every morning. Get out there bright and early, pick the slugs off the plants. You can do it. It's not a fun job, but you can really make a dent in your slugs picking them off by hand if you got the time. We could survive on slugs if you could stomach them. Gross. Ew, unclean, unclean. No. Ugh. That's just gross. Though I think I've shared this story before. He's an adult now, but there was a kid that used to live in our town that would eat slugs. Yuck. Just disgusting. I guess you could say they're snails without the shell, but yeah, whatever. Anyway, sick. Okay. Trying to think. Oh, yeah, a couple other food. And I mentioned this before, but if you have the kind of sofa that's fully closed in, like has a fabric back, and if it's up against a wall, you could consider opening up the fabric in the back of a couch. Usually you got if it's not a hide-a-bed, you've got a lot of empty space in there, and you can use that for like lightweight storage. And not that you can't use it for heavyweight storage, but I wouldn't recommend it. But, that might even be a good place to store toilet paper because it's lightweight. That way, if you need to move the furniture around, it's hardly going to weigh any more than it would otherwise. So, let's see. I already mentioned the end tables, and this goes over coffee tables too. If you have a coffee table, that's maybe fully enclosed, people might use it for storing magazines and stuff. Put food storage in there too. And if you don't have a coffee table and you want one, get one that's going to provide you an area where you can store food and keep it hidden. So it's, so it looks nice, or you just want to hide it so people don't know that you're a food hoarder. Okay. I'm looking to see if there's any other ideas. Some people, we have attic space. I don't store anything up there myself, but I have mentioned in the past using like attic storage for things that can handle heat. It may not be good for storing food, but you might be able to store other things up there that would then free up other areas in the house for storing food. So let's say your summer, winter clothes, those kind of things. Box them up, store them in the attic, and then you'll have more space in your bedroom, closets, under the bed, and whatnot to store food. So, so anyway, at this point, I think I've covered everything I was going to cover. So don't forget, I've got those video links in the description box. And because I've covered all of that, at least I think I have, unless I've had a brain cramp, even with all the things I wrote down, I won't be starting a second stream if we get cut off. Now I can just enjoy myself, and we can just visit, and I can talk about whatever I want to talk about. And if people don't like the too much yappy, they can just go bye-bye. Oh, there I am being snarky and sarcastic again. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm not sorry to you guys because you guys aren't being that way. You guys are cool. So I want to show you a few things. So you might remember last week, I was showing you the Afghan that I had started. It is now finished. It's just a little baby Afghan for our youngest grandbaby girl that's coming along. She's due in July. So it's just a short little thing. This one, I just love the way the colors turned out with it's the yarn that's called light raspberry. And then I've got the sage, actually that's called frosty green, and the red heart, and then just plain white. And then I also made a more solid, like a warmer one with with a shell stitch, and then put an ivory colored or cream colored lacy ruffle all around it, so that she'd have both. This one I think is a little bigger. I've got it folded in half right now. So that was kind of fun. I haven't done an Afghan like that in a while, with the roughly lacy edge. And then I have a friend who's having a baby, also due in July. And I hope she's not watching. I don't think she. And I still got 2 more strips to do, and I'm making a lilac to this for Rowan when she was born. So I got 2 more strips to do, and it should be wide enough to just be a little, basically an infant blanket. And I think for Rowan's, I used a darker purple. This is called Orchid. The color looks really weird. I don't like the way the color looks in this lighting, but it's actually a nice, pretty color. Buffering, huh? Is it just you or is it me? I noticed when I was editing one video from Wednesday, I had a buffery section in it. I was kind of surprised. Yeah, the first one with the daisies, I love that one. But the funny thing about this particular pattern right here, this is called, is it called lilacs or is it called violet? I don't know. I can't remember what it's called, but I saw it on the cover of a pattern book back however many years ago it was. And it was the catalyst that made me want to start learning how to crochet because I fell in love with it. I fell in love with that pattern. We are buffering. We were buffering, but not at the moment. Okay. So I bought that pattern book and then bought along with it, down our local, store here, along with it, a book on learn how to crochet in a day. So that was what, over 20 years ago or so? And then took it and ran. It took me a while though. I kept trying to come back to this once I got the basics down, and it took me a while to figure out how to read the pattern for making this flower. It was so confusing because the way you make it, it was crazy. So, oh, bye, Lucy. Hope you have a wonderful day. By the way, I'll make a post next week, probably next Friday. Which Friday happens to be my youngest son's birthday. And I think we'll have the last of the birthdays out of the way for a while. Anyway, I won't be going live next Sunday. I plan to go live on Wednesday if all goes well. I have a topic picked out, but if it ends up being a really nice day, it's possible I might not because we still have so much work to do in the garden. And so trying to plan around grandbabies and the weather. Those are the 2 main things. I can do some things when the grandbabies are here, but some things it's just I don't like them running around loose out back because of all the chicken poop everywhere. On the deck is fine. But yeah. So I just have to play it by ear. And so if it's a really nice day and a good day for me to get out there and get some of the thing, because I got more potatoes to plant, but I have other things I got to get done before I can put my potatoes in the ground out back. I got my potatoes in the ground out front, but not out back yet because we got some things we got to move around and get out of the way, and some we do till the back garden. There's several reasons. Initially, when I started gardening back there, I was like, no till garden. Well, I do have some no-till gardens. But when it came to that garden, let's see, when it was buffering, you thought we were goners. I hear you. Anyway, we do till that. We find it for at least that area, it's best for us to till it. And then I'll plant my beans. Usually I don't plant my beans until early May. But I should be doing this real soon. Maybe even today if I have time. Planting beans in the little pots I was telling you about earlier, where I have chains hanging down from the corners of like the shop and the greenhouse, so the beans can climb up those. I usually plant those first because of where they are. They're in a more protected area that doesn't catch as much of the cold as the main bean areas, and it gives them a head start too. So I'll probably do that. So I should get my beans out and soak them so that I can get them planted. Maybe I'll plant them tomorrow. I'll get them soaking today. So I do soak when it comes to the beans. I do soak my beans before I plant them. Oh, And then I gotta get my snow peas in the ground. That's the other thing I gotta do, like, right away. But I gotta, I think that area is pretty much ready for the snow peas. I just got to move my fencing over there, and the chickens are gonna have to realize they will no longer be allowed in that area because I don't want them digging up my snow peas. Oh, the other thing is I need a piece. So, Mr. Rain, I'll need a piece of our polycarbonate, the clear stuff, cleaned up and ready to go. I can try to do it. It might not be raining now, but because what I do is I'll plant those peas along the edge of that, and then I'll take a piece of clear polycarbonate and lean it up against the cattle panel. That keeps it warmer in there, gives it a head start, and then also keeps the robins from pulling the peas out of the ground thinking they're worms when they first start growing up out of the ground. That's what they do. They'll do that with a calendula and certain other plants. So they'll think it looks like a worm, and so they'll pull it out and then they'll leave it laying there. It's like, oh, that's not a worm. Oh, let's go to the next one. Oh, that's not a worm. Oh, that's not a worm. Yeah, the morning glory is terrible. The bindweed. It's also called chokeweed. It's terrible. And last year, since I didn't do anything with that garden out front, that's where we have the worst of it. There was so much in there, and Patrick he worked so hard with the digging fork and the pitchfork, digging up a lot of the roots. So hopefully it won't choke out my zucchini, because that's the area he was digging up mostly, was where my zucchini is going to go. I dug up a lot the day before when I was putting the potatoes in. It was kind of drizzly that day, but I wanted to get my potatoes in the ground. Just big old clusters. And you know that any little tiny piece that breaks off, you'll just get another plant growing. But you can at least keep it from being too bad. We pour boiling water on it when it comes up. I hadn't thought about that. Could try that. In some areas, that would be fine. So yeah, that stuff is just terrible, and it's not really good for much. There's not much you can do with it. Unfortunately. Water with vinegar and salt. Yep, I've done that with other things too. I'm afraid of getting too much salt into my soil and then causing issues with anything that I plant. So that's why I haven't thought to do that. I've used that for killing vegetation growing in our driveway. Now I don't worry about that. We've got a blacktop on one side, one driveway, or one parking area, but out front here, I just gave up on it. It's just gravel. I just gave up. I don't care. I don't care. So, have you tried black plastic for morning glory? I kind of wonder if that would help at all. I don't know. That stuff is so terrible. It's just so terribly invasive, and it wraps around everything. Oh yeah, you've got the kudzu. And I think it's a very similar, though I think I could be wrong. I know morning glory grows very, very fast, but I'm thinking the kudzu might grow even faster. Now, the one thing about kudzu is the roots make a great starch. You can use those roots. I can't remember if the rest, I knew what you meant, Lucy. I actually read it as kudzu. um, the I can't remember if you can use the leaves for anything or if they're toxic. I don't know, but I know the roots. You can even buy kudzu powder and use it as a starch. You can use it as a replacement for cornstarch. It has a similar texture as cornstarch, tapioca starch, potato starch. Well, maybe not potato starch. I think that's a little bit different. What's the other one I always use? Arrowroot powder. Takes the heat of summer, though. Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking, Dusty. It's just, man, that stuff is so bad. Oh, when we had our lovely hedges in the back, which was just so nice, it made a nice privacy wall between us and the neighbors. One of the reasons the neighbor claims he took those hedges out because they really were his is because of the morning glory would grow up in it. It actually looked cool though because it would bloom. You'd have these pretty white flowers all over in the laurel. And that was okay. I didn't care about it there. It's just that when it starts coming into the garden and choking everything out, that's an issue. That's an issue, and it's also a pain. I'm kind of wondering if that is what killed my raspberries because the raspberries were planted on the east side of the house. They were doing good for several years, but then the morning glory started traveling from the front yard, where that's the worst of it, around the side and started wrapping itself around the raspberries. And then they still seemed to be doing okay for a couple of years, and then one year they just didn't come back. So I'm not really sure what happened there. So we use industrial strength vinegar, 30% to 45%. Ooh, that is pretty strong for weeds. So thanks, Chick Girl, for that. I can imagine that would probably work pretty good, and it is definitely going to be more natural. Again, for some things, I worry about how am I going to put some of the stuff on there where it's not going to kill my other plants? Like I got a lot of perennials and stuff growing in some of these areas, and I don't want to kill them too. So I don't know if it would work to stretch the morning glory out, lay it out, and then pour onto the part that's laid out. I don't know if it would kill it clear down to the root. It'd be interesting to know that though. But yeah, I used to do the salt vinegar mixture and pour it direct. I didn't mix it with water. I just do salt and vinegar, and on a hot day, pour it directly onto weeds. And that usually did pretty good. Or the clover, anything where I was wanting to try to keep my driveway not having, the gravel area out here not having any plants in it. And now I don't care anymore. I just let it be all natural. I like it better actually. Cut it off short and lay black plastic on it. Huh. Anyway, I've almost been on here an hour. So, yeah, just a reminder, may or may not. Oh, I know what it was I was going to say. So, because things are going to get busier with the garden and various other things going on, I'm not sure if I'll keep doing live shows twice a week, at least not through summer. And so I would like a little bit of feedback on which day works better for everyone for me to do a live show. Part of me would kind of like to do it on Wednesdays and have it earlier in the day, but I know a lot of you, like especially like Deb, she's way over there in Florida. So as far as being in the United States, got the largest she's what 3 hours ahead of me. So obviously I couldn't do it, if I did it at 9 in the morning, my time, it would be 6 o'clock her time. So that might be way too early. See, I'm at work, so never see Wednesday. Okay. So probably Sundays would be best if I stuck with it. And the reason I do this time on Sundays is I know for at least people on the other side of the states, they're usually, if they go to Sunday church, they're usually home from church. Over here, they might just now be getting home. So we'll see. And sometimes it might even just be a week by week thing, depending on the day. So if it's like a super nice day and it lands on either a Sunday or a Wednesday, I might not do it. I'll just shoot what videos I can early in the morning, and then I'll have the rest of the day to then work on my garden. So there's that. But yeah, so next Sunday, no live. I won't be going live on April 8th either, for sure. And that's also a Sunday. So those days for certain. And then yeah. Yeah, so we usually have church on Saturday, so it's not that's why Sundays work for us. I try not to do any YouTube, any work related stuff on Saturdays. It's been a blessing. I tell you what, especially after Friday, I'm like, as I was hacking on that shrub out there, I'm like, oh my gosh, because it was really tall. It was like taller than the gutter line, tall, because I hadn't been pruned back in a couple of years. I'm like, my goodness, my shoulders are going to hurt tomorrow. It's a good thing it's a day of rest, and I needed it, man. I was so sore. I did spend a half an hour in our massage chair, though. That did help, but I think I'm gonna have to sit in it again today because I'm still kind of sore back in here. Oh, anyway. What did Tyler try to call? Tyler, I missed your message because I was gathering shipping boxes. Oh, I don't even know. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm so confused. So, see, this is a problem. If I'm not reading the chat all the time, you guys could be talking about anything and talking about silly stuff. I miss out on the fun. And if you're being naughty, I miss out on that and I can't discipline anyone. But then if I'm sitting here reading the chat all the time, then the people watching this, especially in replay, just see me staring at the screen, and that's stupid. Tyler said we could squat on his place. Oh, you're shipping boxes. I see. I say it may happen. It may happen. We may just decide to get out of Washington State. I don't know. I love where we're at for the most part, but moving to Texas to avoid morning glory. Yeah, but what would we be trading it for, Tyler? Tell me. Mike's heart surgery is Tuesday, so I should be here Wednesday. We'll be praying for him, Deb. So thank you for that reminder too about that. So yeah, I do plan to be here Wednesday unless it's a super nice day, and I think that I would be better suited to be out doing some gardening, getting once we get some of that other, you guys know who've been gardening, you get it. Once you get certain things put in place and done, the rest of the gardening through the season usually gets a little easier until you got all the heavy harvesting and canning and all that. Then you get busy again. But the rest of it is just like making sure things get watered and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I do have a topic picked out for Wednesday, though. It should be a fun one. So I hope it works out. It's like it's mixed feelings for me. It's like I want it to be nice because it would be a good day to get out and get some stuff done, and no grandbabies would be here. On the other hand, I don't want it to be nice, so I have an excuse to be here. But yes. But well, the other thing too, the other reason I'm thinking about going down to once a week is my vocal cords have they're not getting better. They've been worse lately. I'm just having a harder time with them, and I think it's all this talking for an hour or more straight, and it's really taken a toll, and then doing that a couple times a week. When I'm shooting my other videos, they're not that long, and then I get breaks in between. Shoot a video, I get a little break, and so it's not so bad, but take us with you in the garden. I will be doing some shorts at least because the shorts are something I can put up right away, and I'll also be doing like updates in the live shows, but in the this and that's where I can add photos and stuff so you guys can see what's going on. I used to have it before I was so far ahead on my videos. I used to have it where during garden season, I would have my garden videos. I'd have my Monday this and that, and then I have my garden videos on Wednesday. But it's too hard to squeeze all that in now with everything being scheduled out. So now it's got to be something I combine with my Monday this and that videos, and then maybe have a short. I can talk about it in the lives, but I can't really show you pictures and put all that stuff in there. So did just copperheads and moccasins, water moccasins, I'm assuming. Yeah, that sounds like a good trade, Tyler. I'm not the kind of person that's deathly afraid of snakes. I used to want a pet snake. But I will say I have a very, very healthy respect of those that are highly poisonous and can kill you. So, I mean, I love tigers. I think tigers are adorable. I just love tigers. But I wouldn't put myself in a cage with one. I don't want to be eaten alive. So, yeah. What did Patrick say here? Tyler, we and our stuff would have to be thoroughly inspected upon arrival. That morning glory is like the alien after the Sigourney Weaver. Yeah, it could be like a face hugger that got on board with us. Exactly. Okay. I'm starting to itch and start my vocal cords are getting to that point at any second. They're just gonna stop, like happened in one of my early live shows where I couldn't talk at all. So I really should get off here. So, anyway, here's my closing. Thank you all for coming in. Really appreciate you being here, the fun chit chat that we get to have, as well as covering some good, interesting topics. And hopefully, people learned something. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And of course, a great week ahead of you. Thanks for coming in. Take care and God bless. Bye.